Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads. Hey, how's it going out there, everybody? Welcome to the Drum Shuffle. Jamie Eads joining you as always. This is episode 67. We have a great episode today. In my opinion, anyway, I'm going to be joined by my good friend Logan Todd here in just a moment. Logan recently drove up to Kentucky from Nashville and spent an afternoon with me. We hung out in the studio and did a nice interview, and just such a great young drummer that everybody should know. So I hope everybody's having a great week out there, and we'll be joined by Logan after this message from our sponsor, Los Cabos Drumsticks. The best kept secret for drummers is finally out. Los Cabos Drumsticks may look like the sticks you grew up with, but these are not your father's drumsticks. Los Cabos Drumsticks is Canada's #1 drumstick brand, and they are coming to a retailer near you. With operations in over 28 countries worldwide, thousands of drummers have already discovered the Los Cabos difference. Using FSC certified wood from Canada and the US, Los Cabos make the finest quality drumsticks, percussion tools, and accessories on the market. The best news, Los Cabos Drumsticks offers you a ton of choice. They have 22 individual drumstick models and 14 percussion tools, many of which are available in 3 different wood types: maple, white hickory, and red hickory. Red hickory comes from the center or heart of the hickory tree and has been independently proven to be both stronger and more elastic than white hickory without adding a lot of weight. While most drumstick manufacturers have shunned red hickory, Los Cabos Drumsticks has embraced it, becoming the only established stick brand in the world to offer a full line of red hickory drumsticks. To learn more about Los Cabos Drumsticks, visit them online at loscabosdrumsticks.com, follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and don't forget to ask for Los Cabos Drumsticks at your favorite retailer. Dare to be different. Join the Red Hickory Revolution with Los Cabos Drumsticks. All right, guys and girls, as I mentioned, we're about to be joined by my good friend Logan Todd. Logan is a young drummer making his way down in Nashville, Tennessee. He's originally from Memphis, but I got to know Logan during the Summer NAMM show last year in Nashville. We met and started up a friendly conversation amongst 2 drummers, and we've been, keeping in touch. And Logan says that I have kind of become a mentor to him, which I question his life choices, quite honestly, but just a super, super young drummer that is going to be very, very important in a lot of different ways. So I was very pleased to host him for an afternoon. I hope you get to know a little bit about Logan during this interview, but I think it's just absolute internet gold. We had so much fun together doing this interview. So please help me welcome to the Drum Shuffle my friend, Logan Todd. Hey, Logan, how's it going, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hey, thanks for making the drive up to Central Kentucky to be on the Drum Shuffle. We appreciate that.
Dude, beautiful drive. Got to see a lot of horses on the way up here.
Yeah,
learned about Irish stonemasons too. Dry masonry, the new hip hobby.
Well, you'll see plenty of dry Irish masonry in this neck of the woods,
and that's
for sure.
what today's podcast is going to be about, folks.
Yeah,
we're really shifting gears.
Yeah, Dan Carlin has nothing on me. We're going to talk about the history of dry masonry in Central Kentucky. All right, so we're 30 seconds in and it's already off the rails. I love it.
That's how it's going to be.
I knew this was going to happen. So kids, the moral of the story, don't let drummers into your studio, because this is what happens.
Yes, don't let them near a microphone.
Yeah, when we do this in person. So if I may, before I just dive right into the question asking, let's tell everybody how you and I met and kind of got hooked up. I was down at Summer NAMM in Nashville last July, and was hanging out over at the Dream
booth,
the Dream Symbols booth. And Logan, our guest today, walked up and was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" And we just started a conversation. Yep. And we've stayed in touch, and Logan has since become a Dream Symbols artist.
Much thanks to you.
Well, no, I don't know. It's much thanks to your playing, but I was happy to just introduce you to the right people or whatever. But the rest of that is all on you. But we've kind of, we've had monthly phone calls, just kind of keeping in touch, and we finally managed to find a time for us to get together and have you as a guest on the Drum Shuffle.
This is a long time coming, and frankly, you've been a really awesome mentor to me.
Oh my God!
Guy. I know. Look, come on, man. Take it how you will, but it's just been really nice, having someone who's been doing this for a long time that I can call and just be like, "Hey, this is kind of what's going on." And you're like, "Look, man, don't jump off the cliff. Everything's going to be fine."
Yeah, well, I think if I'm your mentor, you need to.
I need to reevaluate.
You need to reevaluate some life choices. But no, I mean, look, I had guys when I was, in my 20s and had just really said, "I'm going to do this professionally," and I had guys that I was able to reach out to and say, "Man, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be." So I'm just trying to, pay that back.
Absolutely.
into
and
the
I
universe.
think that's something, as I'm really getting to the professional side of this, that I'm starting to see, and I'm seeking out relationships like that, when I met you, I was like, "Oh, this is a cool guy." Obviously, we both share the Memphis connection too.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this, but Chad Gamble too.
Yeah.
That whole thing. And so just recognizing a like-minded person who's a little further along in the journey, I think is an important way for me to just kind of see what's next and see what's to come. So
yeah, for sure, man. Well, and I just think it's, we talk about this a lot on this show that, drummers are this big, huge family, and we're all rooting for one another, which I think is really cool. And, so I just think drummers are always willing to help one another out.
Absolutely. It's not really as cutthroat as people on the outside may think it is.
Yeah, it's not. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times somebody's been like, "Hey man, can I borrow, a hi-hat stand tonight?
Yeah.
Mine's broke, and, Guitar Center's closed," or whatever the case may be. I mean, that's just kind of how we're all wired, which is awesome.
Dude, forgetting a clutch on the gig. Yeah. Scariest thing that can ever happen.
Well, now I showed you my tool case a minute ago. There's 3 extra hi-hat clutches in there.
Oh man. Actually the worst, I mean, to dive right into just a very drummer specific problem. I had a kick drum pedal. The beater fell on me on a big gig and instantly went from 4 on the floor kick drum part to no kick drum.
Yeah.
And that's an impossible fix. That is all systems fail. If you drop a clutch, you can kind of use one hand and fix it.
Yeah.
But when you drop a beater, that's end of the line, man.
Yeah.
Playing floor tom.
Yeah. You just got to play the floor tom. I mean, that's all there is to it, and unfortunately I've been in that situation before, or, I'm a beater masher.
Me too.
So
I wish I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could play with the beater off, but I mash it in, and I've actually gone completely through a head before.
Oh no!
To where the beater is stuck inside the broken head, and it's just well,
that's the end of the gig.
Yeah, when we get to the end of this song, I'm going to find a roll of gaff tape and
see what we can do.
That's, I mean, I've actually, back when I was really young, I actually flipped a bass drum around and played the resonant head.
Scary stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, you do whatever you have to do to get through the gig. So, but enough about, let's not bad vibe our gigs,
dude.
Talking about this
Hold
stuff.
on.
God.
Well, hey, don't worry. There's always a MacGyver solution. So
yes.
There's always a way.
Man, I say it all the time. If you have a problem in life, tell a drummer about it, because it will get solved.
We'll figure it out.
And we'll figure that out. We can reverse engineer a space shuttle. Something
high praise.
High praise for drummers.
You have some chewing gum and a couple paper clips. We'll figure this out.
It's fantastic. So Logan, let's tell all of our listeners, you mentioned earlier, you kind of alluded to it. You're originally from Memphis, which I spent some time down there, in the mid 90s.
Yep.
That's kind of where I threw my hat into the ring, as I'm going to do this as a professional. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about growing up in Memphis, and how did you end up behind a drum set to begin with?
Oh man, it's funny because it's like I've got such a specific story about like how I started playing drums. But I mean, I think my love for music started because my parents have always been huge advocates of like the arts in Memphis. My mom or dad don't play. My brother's a rapper professionally, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So music runs in the family, but there's not really any like musicians in my immediate family, but everyone in my family has always been a huge advocate of live music. So, before I could even see over the bar, my parents were taking me to clubs to go see bands play.
Killer.
Like, the River Bluff Clan was one of the, first bands, I kind of hear that a little bit too. River Bluff Clan was one of the first bands I really like fell in love with. And it was like Americana before Americana was classified,
Yeah.
A little bit of bluegrass. The drummer, Harry Peel, rest in peace, man. But he was like the first guy that I ever saw playing the drums that just kind of blew my mind. And all he played was a kick snare and a hi-hat. And he just made it sing like nobody's business.
That's killer.
And so the first guys that I fell in love with were like pocket guys working, like working class drummers, as a kid, just like watching these guys, like that's unbelievable. And this was before I even knew I wanted to play the drums, So I was just thankful to grow up in that sort of like music rich environment, and my family being so integrated into the arts community. I always felt like I had a lot of people who were doing great things in the Memphis music scene, kind of like, tousling my hair and rooting for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's huge.
Yeah. Oh man. And like, I learned so much from those guys. Like, by the time, just to jump forward a little bit, by the time I got to Belmont and Nashville, like every time I'd come home, I had this great group of people who were like, man, how are things going in Nashville? Are you doing your thing up there?
Yeah.
Like obviously a little bit of resentment because the Memphis Nashville rivalry is still,
that's a real thing. That's a real thing. Yeah.
And it goes all the way back to, when Elvis's contract got sold to RCA, it's a long thing. But anyways, I started playing drums in sixth grade. I remember to the day, like when I started, it was the last day of sixth grade, and my best friend at the time, I was going to go spend the night at his house to like celebrate the last day of school. And his dad was an optometrist, and I needed my eyes checked. So my mom's like, you can spend the night if you go get your eyes checked with this guy. So I do. And while I'm getting my eyes checked in the back, I'm finding out that I'm super blind, and that's why my 3-point shot was so terrible in middle school.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And so I hear drums going on in the back, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I'd never really stood like in front of a drum kit up to that point. I started pretty late, I guess, sixth grade. Who's to say? But I remember hearing him play just boom, boom, cat, 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 boom, cat. Just like kind of the first groove you learn, and I was just transfixed by it. And so I wouldn't let them leave until I like figured out how to do it on the drums.
Oh, that's cool.
That night I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, I want to take drum lessons, and the next day she signed me up for drum lessons. I called everyone in my family that day. It's so crazy, and told them I was going to be a drummer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, it was like that specific moment sort of thing. And I never really looked back. I didn't own a kit for the first year. I had just a practice pad. And
now, were you at Drum Shop of Memphis?
Oh, yeah. Mike Assad was my first teacher. Great teacher. Yeah. I wish I could go back and take from him now, just because he's such an accomplished jazz guy, and he's teaching me Joel Rothman's Baby Book of Drumming or whatever. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, it's not easy stuff. But, for folks that are in that area of the country, like if you're in, Mississippi, West Tennessee, if you're in Arkansas, if you're anywhere in that general geographic location, it is worth a half day's drive to go to Drum Shop of Memphis. First of all, there are videos that are on YouTube. Like if you're
mysymbol.com.
Yeah, mysymbol.com. But it like, for me, it's like, oh, Ludwig came out with something new, or Tama, you can go check out some awesome drummer playing that kit. And
I
it's
think the best part is just like watching what the guys come up with, because they always like, let me showcase this beautiful new drum with my brand of playing. And it's always like, oh my gosh, great players. I'll watch them just for the players.
Yeah. Some of those guys are, and I'm probably going to get the name wrong, so I apologize. Okay. But is it Ben White that does a lot of their videos there?
I'm not familiar with Ben.
Yeah. So just tasty groove guy, and love watching, his demo videos. But
Tom Leonardo's another guy too. If you've ever seen him, he's like the Memphis jazzer kind of.
Yeah. But I mean, so take the drive to Memphis Drum Shop, for sure. It's a great place to visit. It's really cool. They're super helpful. One of the, nation's great 5-star drum shops. So there's a plug for Memphis.
Yes, absolutely. It's and then going down to Lafayette's Music Room too. That's one of the best live rooms in town, and it's just right up the street. There's always good music going on there. Worth a day trip for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, Memphis is one of those places that if you're a music lover, a live music lover anyway, it's worth a weekend in Memphis. Everybody should spend a day on Beale Street.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's how I cut my teeth, like playing too in high school. Me and my friends, we totally had like the Memphis mentality about it, of like we would go down and just hustle to like set up on a street corner.
Oh yeah.
And like try to just play down there, and we'd just ask someone if we could use an outlet.
Yeah.
And we'd run like a full band off of one power strip.
Yeah.
PA and all on Beale Street. And like, man, we could make anywhere from like $300 to $700 just like busking on Beale Street as a 3-piece. And it was like a really great way to come up, just like as far as getting that real, like there's just something in the water down there as far as like the way it makes you play. And I mean, you're just automatically listening to other people and you're watching the crowd. Like you want people to be moving because it's a big party. It reminds me a lot of New Orleans.
Yeah. Memphis and New Orleans are, they're definitely, loosely related anyway. New Orleans is more about the jazz. Memphis is definitely about the blues, so, but those two genres are so interconnected anyway. So, all right. So you're taking lessons at Memphis Drum Shop. You're getting started. I know that you were like immediately like forming up your first garage bands and things like that. And I don't want to gloss anything over or skip ahead too much, but you ended up in Nashville because of Belmont.
Yes.
So now, when I lived in Memphis, I was already, an adult.
Yes.
So I didn't do school in Memphis, but, I know that there's the great, marching band traditions for football games, all that stuff. So were you kind of doing the school thing through middle school, high school? Were you doing marching band?
So I played trumpet in the high school band because everyone wants to play drums. Drums are like the cool thing, apparently, when you're doing band.
Yeah.
And I went to Christian Brothers High School, which claim to fame is like the oldest high school band in America. And so I wound up being forced to play trumpet. I did trumpet in middle school too, and Scott Thompson was our director. He's a great trumpet player in Memphis, like played on Cat Power, does sessions with like Boo Mitchell, all kinds of people.
Okay, that's cool.
Player.
Yeah.
So he was, again, I feel like so many of these great players were like lost on me because I was just too young to like understand, But so I played trumpet in high school, and we had a jazz band, and I played drums in the jazz band.
Okay.
And then I didn't do any of the marching stuff at all. So when I got to Belmont, like all of those kids were like DCI kids, like just marching.
Chops for days.
Dude, just like, running pataflaflas or whatever to a click. Like just so rudimentally rooted,
Yeah.
And I did take a lot of rudimental training in high school, but like not to the level. Like I remember my first day of college, someone played a 4-mallet marimba solo called Merlin. It's like this really, difficult classical piece. And that was my first day of college. I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm going to make it.
Yeah. Well, and you hear those stories, about guys that like my first day at Berklee College of Music, in Boston, and I go, I'm moving back home. It can be intimidating, but Belmont is one of the great music schools anywhere, and it doesn't get as much, I I guess, publicity
Sure.
as like the University of Miami, Berkeley, Musicians Institute, North Texas,
But that's what I think is so great about it, because Belmont like churns out people who are ready to like to gig. It's not so much, I mean, obviously you're getting a very first rate musical education, but it's so much more about the community created there. And it's not like, it doesn't, I mean, obviously when you go to Belmont, you kind of you look at those other schools with a bit of, with a bias.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the, people will talk about Berkeley like, oh, those kids come out amazing players, but they're kind of like, they let you know it.
Yeah. Well,
Obviously that's not true of everybody, but
Right.
for Belmont, it was like, that's like the working people come out of Belmont as far as like, the music school type of education. It was very focused on like, getting a job.
Right.
With it,
Well, and I remember, when I was younger, it was a really big deal. Mike Curb from Curb Records. I mean, that was when he like wrote the really big check, with a lot of zeros on it, and it was like the Curb School of
the
Music Business. And that was a big deal. But I can remember, when I don't know, I was in my mid-20s probably, visiting Belmont and like seeing just a hallway of recording studio after recording studio, and I was like, holy cow, man, this is really something. But it was too late for me.
Sure.
And I just didn't know because the lack of publicity.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's still a little secret. Like I was asking about it, because I've got a friend who's still in school there now. It's still only like 10,000 for the student population.
That's unreal.
I mean, and it's a beautiful campus, but that was like, as far as going to music school, it was incredibly difficult, but I'm so glad I did it. Like, and finished it. Like I almost quit 3 times, and I'm just so glad that I stuck it out. And like, the first 2 years, you kind of like, I felt like I was trying to cop to everybody else as far as like, oh, well, this is what they're doing, so let me like try to get in on that. But then it's like, I just kind of embraced my identity as like a groove guy, and I mean, I picked up a lot of the skill stuff too, but as I just got older there, it just became so much more comfortable to like, hey, this is whatever I want to make of it. Like I'm the one paying tuition here. Like I'm going to milk this for all it's worth. And I'm really thankful that I got my degree from there, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of these schools, you go to it, we had Rich Redmond on not too long ago. And of course he was, North Texas guy, played in their, great
1 O'Clock Jazz Band.
the 1 O'Clock Jazz Band. And, Rich is a great jazz player, but nobody knows him for that. I mean, everybody knows him as the guy that's played with Jason Aldean all these years. And, the guy that kind of brought that, John Bonham bigness to country music. I mean, that's Rich's calling card. So I think that a lot of guys, when they go to these really prestigious music schools, they go and they focus on jazz, and then they don't do that for a living, which I find really interesting, because if you put a gun to my head right now, I couldn't play jazz that made sense to anybody.
Dude, well, that's the thing is like, I think, and I'm, just speaking for myself, I really try to seek out at least one project at a time where I can have some of those, like some of that freedom of expression, because I love jazz. Like I'm a huge jazz lover. Like I was telling you earlier, I went and saw Robert Glasper Trio at City Winery in Nashville the other night. Chris Dave on drums, like perfect culmination of like hip hop and jazz infusion. And like, I'm always looking for a project where I can like push myself in that way. But at the same time, there's so much joy that comes from just playing good, solid backbeat, with the right textures. So I don't know, I guess I just try to have a breadth of projects where I can express different aspects of my playing. I love to play, it's like,
don't we all? I mean, that's why we do this,
And there's like, there's a term with rappers, like, because that's what my brother does. And, some people like really like to rap. There's people who are like kind of more vibing. There's people who really like to rap, really flex their muscles. And like, I love to play, when I can.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have some sort of outlet for that every now and then.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the gigs that you're doing these days.
Okay.
Now, the one that I have heard, and you were gracious enough to kind of share some, preview tracks, hopefully I'm not getting you fired now.
You're fine.
So
it's not coming out till January though. So we got some time.
Okay, cool. So it's going to be a little while, but I got to hear some of those, I wouldn't call them rough mixes, but definitely not the finished product yet. With Jason Lee McKinney Band.
Yes.
And, I will just say this, that, for our listeners who are a fan of kind of that crossover between rock and country, Americana is what everybody, look, I think Americana gets overused, a lot.
It's a catch-all.
It really is. Like, we don't know where we fit in, so we're going to call ourselves Americana.
Yeah.
But this really, truly is Americana music. Really good stuff. It's
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good songs.
Jason's a great writer.
Clearly, he knows what's going on, and he comes from. I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but he kind of comes from that same vein as a Jason Isbell or. Good guitar driven rock stuff, but yet the tender acoustic-y ballad stuff at the same time, so it's really good. So tell us a little bit about that gig and what you've got going on there. I know you guys just kind of did some stuff in Europe. You were touring over there. So talk to us about it.
So with Jason, I'll just kind of like tell you how I got in the band. It was actually, there's a website called that'smygig.com. It's just kind of like a posting site for, contract work.
Yeah.
And they put a listing out there for a drummer, and I sent him my stuff, got an audition, did great at the audition, got a phone call a week later when I'm on the road with the band called the Voodoo Fix. And they're like, "Hey, do you want to join our band?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So, it's 5-piece, got keys, bass, drums, lead guitar, and then rhythm. And our lead player, Sam Burst, man, amazing slide player. I mean, you listen to some of those solos on the record. And that's, I think, my favorite thing about that band is like what we were just talking about like being able to play, like all of those guys play their ass off. Like they're such great players, but everyone's like so dedicated to like taking that song and like making it shine, because Jason writes really great songs. And so it's just this exercise in restraint, and we all push each other really hard. So, and it's a great harmony band too, which I forget sometimes, and then I'll just be sitting back there on the kit listening like, oh man, these dudes can sing.
Yeah.
And so, I've been with them for almost 2 years now. First major tour I did with them, we did a USO tour, and it's AFE, Armed Forces Entertainment. Did a tour in the Middle East. Got to go to Qatar, Djibouti, Africa. Where else? United Arab Emirates, just like all these Middle Eastern countries. And it was just a really great experience getting to play for the troops over there. And
I'd imagine that's got to be cool.
It was great. And at the time, I had just finished producing a hip hop record for my brother, who was a medic in Afghanistan. So I had all the rough mixes from that when we were on the road in the Middle East, and I was just showing all these guys, and it was so cool because they were relating to it. And then it was just like the time with Jason has been really good, and I feel like that's kind of where things have really started to like shoot upward for me, has been since joining that band. And it's just it's always a fresh, fun time with them, and doing the Poland thing. Last year we played in Marangowo, Poland, which is north of Warsaw. Did this big festival over there called the Picnic Festival. Played right on at this amphitheater, right on the mouth of like a beautiful lake. 8,000 people, biggest show I've ever done. And
that's crazy, man.
It was an airline lost my symbols.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay. So we said we weren't going to bad vibe any more gig stories.
No.
The airline lost my symbols.
I did get them back.
After how many weeks?
Dude, that is such a rabbit hole. No more bad vibes.
Yeah. So when you're just make a note, everybody out there listening to this, make a note to yourself when you are traveling, when you're touring as a drummer, never check anything that you actually want to see again.
Very true.
It's almost better to like pay for an extra person to take the flight and gate check.
Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, man. It's tough.
And they forced me to check it. Like I want to, like I did. I was like, I don't want to check this. I don't. And they're like, you have to check it. I'm like,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a nightmare, but the Poland thing was really cool.
Yeah. There's a video on YouTube of that too. I can shoot you a link to it.
Yeah. We'll absolutely. Yeah. We'll absolutely.
Great, but just a great live band, man. They're just fun guys to play with. And I really enjoy that gig a lot. And we cover a lot of ground. Like Jason actually teaches, he's the music business department chair at a university in Memphis called Visible School. It's like a Christian music college. And so he and I share the Memphis connection too. So we're like really into soul music, and there's like, you could probably hear on that song Blues in Bahrain. There's like definitely some soul influence.
Yeah.
In
that was the highlight of the record for me. Cool. That song is insane. Yeah. I mean, it's really cool. And you play a really tasty groove throughout that. You're welcome. It's well deserved, but, I know that you're also doing a lot of session work these days. So, the question that I get asked most, like, every episode I say, we answer every email that you send, right? The number one email that I get from people that listen to this show is, how do I become a session guy? How do I how do I get my start? That's what I want to do. I want to live in the studio. I want to be a session guy. And, we've had Matt Chamberlain on the show. We've had Chris McHugh on the show.
Matt Chamberlain's one of my biggest heroes. For sure.
Yeah. So, these guys are doing this all the time. Aaron Comas we had on the show. Just monster session guys. It's hard for guys like Logan and Jamie to do session work, but I want you to tell your story of how you got started.
Sure. And, like we were talking about earlier, I feel like the snowball's finally starting to roll downhill a little bit. And I feel like I can provide a unique perspective compared to these guys who've been doing it for such a long time, because I feel like my journey in the session world is just kind of
you're just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think what I've done, one thing, Belmont was definitely really helpful as far as just meeting engineers. And I feel like I've always gravitated towards engineers and producers because, there's just a shared love for sound. And I feel like as drummers, like we're big texture fans, and,
there's a certain level of geekdom that comes with, and I'm not cutting anybody, but, to be a recording engineer, to be a drummer, to be a guitarist with like the big pedal board, there's a certain level of nerdery that just kind of, we're all, kindred spirits together in that way.
And you can really feel that, I think, especially with like engineers and drummers, just because, like that, everyone has a philosophy about how to set up drum mics. There's the Glenn Johns technique, and there's there's just so many different schools of thought out there for miking a drum kit, which is what's so great about it. How you can have like a calling card based on like how you mic a drum kit. And so
it's insane, really.
And I've always like kind of gravitated towards that because when I went to Belmont in classical percussion guys take love for sound and texture to an insanely different level. Like there's a guy named Sam Bacco in Nashville who's like the classical percussion chair in this Nashville Symphony.
Man, Sam Bacco is the guy that brought Slingerland back from the dead. When they were making drums in Nashville, early 90s, Sam Bacco was that guy.
Oh, wow.
Sam Bacco, I actually had a kit for a long time that he restored for me, an old Ludwig kit. So Sam Bacco, I'm going to give him a shout out real quick. But when DJ Fontana had his original Gretsch kit that Elvis gave him, like calfskin heads kind of thing, when he had that restored, Sam Bacco did it.
Oh, okay.
So, but Sam has played percussion on every record out of Nashville for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
But fantastic classical percussionist. So sorry to interrupt, but had to give Sam a shout out.
That's the thing. This world is so it's so connected.
Yeah.
There's so many pieces, and it's just it's all relevant, Yeah. And so, but long story short about that is that's kind of where I started developing this love for sound and texture, was just by watching the way those guys would take a can and see what pitch it is, and then like set it up with other cans to play, like a percussion ensemble piece. And I was like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And then, also I love guys like Matt Chamberlain and Aaron Sterling. And so I feel like with the session world, my niche was already kind of figured out for me because I love to groove and I love finding weird off the wall things to make sound, you know?
Yeah.
And I, love talking to engineers about like, oh, what if we try this? I'm just like really excited about all of that stuff. And I want to ask those questions. And a lot of my friends at Belmont were engineers, and I try to keep, just like you and I keep in touch like once a month. I think what's kind of gotten the ball rolling is I just keep touching base with people, or like, hey, let's go grab a beer, blah, blah, blah. And not in the way, it's not like, it's not a means to an end. It's more just like, hey, I need to be engaged with this group of people. If this is what I'm doing, then I need to see how these people are doing and be genuinely concerned with what's going on in their lives. And, the more you talk to someone, the more you see someone, the more they think about you when they need somebody.
Well, the music business is very much out of sight, out of mind, and I tell my wife, Lisa, all the time, I could be a whole lot busier as a player, but it would require me to be out at shows 4 or 5 nights a week in that networking thing. And, I'm at an age now where I really like sitting in this studio. And I mean, I've got a big screen TV here. You know what I mean?
It's a very nice place.
But I'm lazy. That's just the honest answer. And I work enough. Do I want to do more? Sure. But if I got so much more work, would I be happy? I don't know, so I think it's, and you will find, and I don't want to let any cats out of the bag, but Logan is a newlywed. So congratulations on that. But I think you will find as you're starting your family and things like that, there is a point in life where you stop saying yes to everything.
Absolutely.
At least for some guys, now, I've had, I think Matt Chamberlain said he always says yes, no matter what it is, he always says yes kind of thing, unless it really sucks.
So there's the floor.
There is. But, I think the conversation about how do you become a session guy is you just have to be in that world. And when you get that first call, hey, come do this session,
just do it.
And
do it really, really well. And
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. But there's also this, it's such a crazy thing because I've had some producers tell me like, and some of my teachers, even at Belmont, tell me like, man, like when you go into a session, just be quiet and do exactly as you're told. And then, go home and, just like very stern sort of approach to it. Like, and yes, we're in the service industry, but I feel like part of the service that I can provide is I just love making good songs and I want to help heighten something in any way I can. And it's not for my own ego or personal gain. It's just because like, oh, let's make this song great. And so I feel like I've started to develop a calling card in a sense, just by having ideas and being excited about sharing things. Yeah. And obviously there's definitely a time and a place. Like you need to read the room. That's something I went to an Aaron Sterling thing in Nashville. Shout out to Aaron. And he talked a lot about that, about reading the room, and just like energy levels. If you got people whose energy levels on a 3 or 4, you can kind of afford to bring a little bit more energy into that room. But if you've got people who have, their egos are on a higher level, that's where you kind of need to be a little bit more in that receiving sort of space as opposed to like interjecting too much,
Yeah, let's not be Meryl Streep, right? Let's go for best supporting actor instead of, not to interrupt your train of thought, but there have been sessions that I've walked into and I was told ahead of time, you are recreating the drum machine on this demo.
Absolutely.
That's all you're doing. So they just want live drums, but you're recreating exactly what's on the demo. Yeah. There have been others that I've walked into and they're like, the world is your oyster. Tell us what it needs. We're not drummers kind of thing. But most, I would say 90% of sessions, it's somewhere in between. Yeah. Pick your spots, right? Like you don't want to do the Moby Dick, drum fill. You're right. You don't want to do that all the way through the track, but you just gotta, you have to know where to interject. Hey, what if?
It's situational awareness.
Yeah.
Like that is the name of the game in the studio, is situational awareness, and like being receptive and open and just being, I would say just really just being honest, like not having any pretense about what you're in there to do. Like if you got a call to be in a session, give it your whole heart. Like don't, I think I used to kind of show up in a somewhat calculated way, or just like, okay, I need this to go a certain way. It's like, just let all of that go. Once you're in the room, just be in that room and just, give it your whole heart. And I've had a lot of luck with that. Like, I think another thing, I've started to get calls because I have this video on YouTube of me playing a Samsonite suitcase kick drum and then playing brushes and a piccolo snare with it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And I love just putting together weird sort of junk kits all the time. And so, I'm doing this record with Jakir King right now for ZZ Ward. She unbelievable artist, amazing voice, great songwriter. And Jakir King's obviously an amazing producer. And just such a kind person. But he found me because he saw that YouTube video.
That's cool.
And then I wound up doing something similar on the session, and everyone in the room loved it. And like, especially the artist, like ZZ was like really excited about it. She posted a video on like her Instagram story of me doing that. And it's just one of those things where like, if you can do something to make people excited in the studio and like just bring that joy of the creative process, like that was the last thing we did at the end of the night too. And everyone left like, oh man, we got such a great track today,
Yeah. So everybody's on the up when you leave. Yeah.
And so, like you're saying, interjecting in a place where it makes sense, like do your job, like hold down the groove, stay out of the way of the vocal. Or if you do anything, just try to complement that vocal, give it a little lift. And if you have a spot, do something cool in that spot and then get back out of the way.
Yeah.
And in 2019, it's all about avoiding the crash cymbal too. Hi-hat on the chorus, man.
Maybe that's why my phone isn't ringing so much. Avoid the crash cymbal. I did not get that memo.
No, I didn't get that one. Unless you put sidechain compression on it, which sounds really cool.
Yeah. Well, I did not get that email though. I'm just saying,
everyone.
Yeah.
You'll get one after this episode.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure my listeners will be like, yeah, man,
dude.
Well, I mean, we were out at kind of the space that I record in a lot, Red House Recording here in town. And you got to meet Phil and you saw, I had my kit set up in there.
Yeah.
I had 20-inch crashes all the way around the kit, my beautiful dream cymbals, but I think, I was jamming with those guys and it's more of a rock thing.
Yeah.
But I think gear is important too.
Absolutely.
Is knowing what your palette is going to be, because I'm going to guess that when you go into a singer-songwriter kind of session, you're not taking your Bonham kit, and people, I think that gets lost on a lot of drummers. They're like, well, my sound is a brass, 6.5 by 14 snare.
Just honking.
Yeah, but it's not if you're going to do a singer-songwriter kind of thing. You'd better have another arrow in the quiver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's another big thing. Like we were saying about texture earlier. It's just like, I'm a big believer in the tools you use, using those as a way to influence your playing and inspire your creativity. And so bringing different options or thinking about the kind of song you're going to be working on any particular day, let that inform your creativity. Like when we did that Jason record, I brought 3 drum kits down there. We were down there for 3 days. I used a different kick drum on every song. On that song Cover Town, the ballad, I used, they had an old Slingerland, concert bass drum in there that I used with a really soft felt beater for the kick drum. And it was perfect because, all bass was just laying down big old puddles. And so I just kind of dropped the bass note on one or the kick drum on one, and it just filled up that space so nicely. And expand the palette always,
right?
Always have choices. And I've been collecting, my box of percussion goodies is finally overflowing. I need to get another one. I've got 8 tambourines.
Oh, well, you might have a problem. I'm just saying, if you get north of 6, just saying, but it's interesting. And this is great conversation because I think a lot of people, A lot of drummers struggle with that. It's like, do I spend my money, right, on a new, I don't know, Iron Cobra double pedal? Or if you're wanting to be in the session game, I don't think that stuff matters as much.
Gadgets and gizmos.
Yeah. Find, if the engineer says, man, that snare just does not fit this track.
Have another one.
Right. And it's not the days of, J.R. Robinson either, where you come in with like, the big cartage, 90 snares or whatever.
Yeah.
But, my adage has always been, you can always take ring out of a drum, but you can't add ring to it.
That's very true.
Right. So if you start with a very resonant instrument to begin with and a roll of gaff tape, you know what I'm saying? You can get to where your target is. So, I find all this stuff just so interesting, and I love hearing somebody else's perspective about it. It's just fascinating. Now, I know that you've also started doing some production work.
Yeah.
And, primarily in the hip hop space, right?
Hip hop and Americana, believe it or not, like very divergent worlds.
So hip-kana?
No, not at the same time.
I know.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I know.
That's rough. You should edit that one out.
That is absolutely staying. Listen here, kids. Hip-kana
is coming your way.
It's coming your way. I said it here first. All right. I want full credit for this. 4:01 p.m. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's fine.
So I know you're working in both genres. How different is it? At the end of the day, you're just trying to get a good track.
Yeah.
No matter what the genre, right? But do you approach the two differently?
They've informed one another so much since I've started doing hip hop, and like I've been listening to a lot more pop music lately too.
I'm sorry.
No, man, there is some great pop out there.
I know there is.
I think
it's just not the stuff that's force fed into us from the machine.
Yeah. But I think what I love about hip hop, again, is the curation of the sounds. Yeah. It's like the grooves are always going to be pretty similar. It's usually a halftime feel with some sort of like 16th note hi-hat pattern. And then there's like, sporadic sort of trap hats, they call them, with like little triplet fills. And it's really fun to take those and pan them in opposite directions and put weird delays on. Like, that's what's so great about hip hop is it's just drumming paradise. But I think a lot of people, because it's electronic as drummers, I think there's like an inherent fear in embracing that, because it's like, oh, well, if it's electronic, then I'm not going to have a job. No, dude, be the best at that. And like, I've worked with hip hop producers, and so many hip hop producers in Atlanta are amazing at making drums sound great, and they don't play drums at all. So sitting down in the room with those guys as a drummer is really fun, because it's just a non-intuitive way of creating. But having that knowledge as a drummer is really cool to apply, because you can really hone in and identify and find that exact sound you're looking for, that exact rhythm. Like, we did a beat yesterday. I've got a crew called Space Church, and it's a piano player, violin player, and me, and we just make hip hop beats.
That's like cool.
All day, every day. Well, once a week.
Okay.
But we did one yesterday in 5/4, and the drums were in 4, but the melody was in 5 over it, and the changes were in 5 over it. But it's just boom, ka, boom, ka. So, anything goes, I guess, is the point. And producing has just been so great. And I think a natural transition, because drummers, it's our job to be listeners. And I know I'm talking a lot right now.
No. This is what you're here to do. But, you brought up a good point, drummers being afraid of the electronic thing, right? So our dream brethren, Kent Oberly, down in Atlanta, Kent said something to me one day. He was like, don't be the get off my lawn kids guy. He was like, go learn how to do stuff in Ableton.
Oh yeah.
Don't pass up another opportunity to work. Right. He was like, you got to embrace it. But it was before my time even, but when the Lynn drum machine came out, dude. I've read articles galore that, no more drummers. Well, guess what? Here we are in 2019.
Still drumming. 40
years after the Lynn drum machine, we're all still working.
Dude, and the coolest thing is blending those two worlds. It's another vehicle for creativity, and you might as well embrace it. And, it took me a long time to realize that. But I was actually on a session with my brother in December, and we recorded 6 songs in 2 days, like out of thin air. Like they did not exist. The beats weren't made. We made 6 beats, recorded 6 hooks, and 12 verses in 3 days. And so I had to run the board on Ableton, and I'd like kind of messed around in it, but I'd never really like just ran a session in Ableton. And having drummed on a lot of sessions, it's like, I know how the flow works and just kind of, you want to keep things moving in a positive direction, but it was kind of a trial by fire situation. And ever since then, I've just continued to dive into it. And Ableton is just, and drummers out there, get that program. It is an unbelievable program. And the coolest feature I found recently, you can take a drum track, like a live drum track, and convert it to MIDI information and then replace all the sounds, but while keeping the real feel of the
space.
The
space in the notes. Yeah.
That's especially cool for like hi-hat. Like I'll record live hats and then throw it into the MIDI converter and then just put in different sounds, and it still feels real. It doesn't have that robotic, like, it feels like it has that like molar technique kind of sound to it.
Well, and if you're going to work, any of the big Nashville tours, right? You're going to be
got to run tracks.
You're going to be running Ableton. If you're a drummer, it's typically the drummer's job,
which is crazy because we already have to do so much and set up so much.
But your click is going to be coming out of an Ableton rig 99 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good point. Now, when you take off the hip hop, hat, producing that, and you have an Americana artist come in, how much of that crosses over?
I think what crosses over is hip hop is so much about vibe and just about the track feeling good, and you never really being able to pick your head up because you're bobbing your head. If there's a moment that kind of takes you out of that, then that would be a diversion that's too much. And I think it's a lot easier when you have a bunch of live players in a room. Everyone has, everyone kind of wants to put their little stamp on it. And so you wind up running into people stepping on each other sometimes. So I think the thing that crosses over is just maintaining that feeling and like staying inside the groove and keeping the song at the top.
Gotcha.
Creating a bed. But it's so funny because in a lot of ways it's exactly opposite too. Like I produced an Americana record for my buddy Derek Johnson last year. Unbelievable, like folk songwriter in the vein of like Woody Guthrie. Like he writes old school cool. like folk songs, but they're not contrived, and it doesn't feel it just doesn't feel like he's like, oh, I listened to this guy and so now I'm gonna write like him. Like, no, that's his heart. Like,
right.
And so really great songwriter. And we just got a bunch of players together in the room, had a steel player, had an organ player, bass player, him playing, he has a really nice Gretsch archtop guitar that just mics up so well, real jangly. It almost sounds like the old, like those Alan Lomax, Robert Johnson recordings.
Yeah, for sure.
It's real gritty, like wiry guitar. And then me on drums, and I produced it too. And what was so cool is we wanted it to have that feeling that his songs evoke. We didn't record with a click. We recorded everything live. He cut his vocals live, and it was just a really special thing. And what I did in that, I sent everybody the lyrics 3 days ahead of time. And I was like, listen to these demos and read these lyrics and really find out how you connect with them, because I wanted everyone to go in. Like Russ Kunkel, old studio trick he used to do, man, he would just ask for a lyric sheet.
Yeah. That's
all he would do. And I mean, he played on one of my favorite drum fills of all time, Jackson Browne, Running on Empty.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But like really just getting inside of the song. So I think with production, the crossover is just, and this, with recording too, just giving it your heart and just really trying to get inside of whatever it is that you're doing and be a student of it too. Like if you're recording a hip hop record, go listen to some hip hop. If you're recording an Americana record, go listen to some Americana. Like just immerse yourself in it.
I think the two genres, and I'm not a hip hop guy. Yeah. That's just me being honest. I think the last, like what you would call hip hop or rap record I bought was NWA. We're talking, 25 years ago, probably. But I think what is constant between Americana and hip hop is the authenticity. It's like there's no formulaic kind of thing about it, about the lyrics anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, modern country music, if you don't mention your tailgate at least a couple of times, and I'm not picking on anybody. It's just, I grew up a huge fan of, the Motley Crue's, Rat, Poison, all of, what we refer to now as hair bands. I hate that term because, some of the best guitar work ever came out of that era. Some of the best drumming ever came out of that era. But you couldn't tell the bands apart by the end of that, and it died.
Yep.
There was something new and fresh that came along called grunge, and it killed all that. I have a bad feeling that might happen to what we see as, mainstream country today.
Is it a bad feeling or is it a relief? This is a platform, so it's kind of like it's tricky water you're stepping into, but it's like there's so many great musicians who play that music, but the songs just feel flat to me. Not all of them.
To me, it would be a relief. But, here's the thing. Look, I've got friends that are in those types of bands. I don't want to see anybody get put out of work. That's the last thing. But I just feel like, Nickelback took a bad rap because all their songs sounded the same, right? And they were all at the exact same tempo. They had the exact same chord changes, and and Creed got a bad rap for the same reason. Mark Tremonti, who has gone on to do Alter Bridge, great band, but I don't know. Is it? I guess what I'm trying to say is, do we need a change or do we not? I don't know. That's not for me to decide. I know what I like and what I don't like. And I feel like when music seems, non-authentic, like it's contrived. You used that word earlier, when it's like, oh, well, now we have to go to the bridge that talks about my baby's boots, kind of thing,
Well, and that's what turns a lot of people off to pop music too, because a lot of pop can seem contrived. But, like with any genre, there's people I think who are out there doing it because they have a genuine love and affinity for that kind of music. And now I'd say the commercial side of country music is really like, it's, I've intentionally kind of stayed out of that world, not knocking it for the people who do that, because it's frankly the best way to make a living in Nashville, because there's the most work for it in town. Trying to carve out a living outside of that is a little more difficult, and it's just, it wasn't for me. And that's not to say it's not for some people, but for me, I feel like I've gravitated more towards the world of like, just, like you said, like very authentic, not formulaic kind of stuff, not, okay, do a little 4-bar drum loop. Here comes a verse, 8th note fill. Here's the chorus, like.
Yeah. And I think we all, if we're going to get into session work, have I played on stuff that, I wouldn't have like become a member of the band? Absolutely.
Sure.
Of course. You probably have too. But I think you go in and you do your best. You try to make the song as good as possible, and, we joke a lot and say, sometimes you just can't polish a turd. Everybody's heard that, but you do your best.
Absolutely. Well, look at guys like, Aaron Sterling and Matt Chamberlain are amazing players that give country records life.
Yeah.
And like, man, Matt Chamberlain's playing on a Miranda Lambert's platinum album is like out of control.
Yeah.
And Aaron Sterling just did a record with Kane Brown. Not a fan of the songs. The production's slick. The production's really cool. But I listened to it. I'm like, man, I really like these tracks, but I don't like these songs.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so people are giving great effort to do these things. And so I feel like there's always something that can be found to just to latch onto. In any given
absolutely.
Song,
and that's kind of what I was, angling at. And I knew you would say it, kind of thing. There's two kinds of music. There's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and that's what's so cool about music and the arts in general is that everything's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, is Beethoven's music great? Yes. Do I drive around listening to Beethoven's Seventh Symphony? Nope.
Yeah.
I don't, but I can appreciate it, that kind of thing. So there's always something for everybody. Logan, I want to be respectful of your time. One of our traditions here on the show, and I know you've listened before, is we always ask our guests for a good piece of advice. And you are an up and comer in the world of drumming, producing, all those things. You're still a young guy.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Give us a good piece of advice. While you may not have decades and decades of experience, I think you might have a really fresh perspective on, other folks that want to get into session playing. We do have a lot of young listeners,
Sure.
So what is it that you would share to say, take this out in your day-to-day life and it will help?
Okay. Can it be a multiple pronged thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If it's multiple pronged, even better.
Okay.
You get bonus points for that.
Great. Hopefully that means another cup of coffee.
Yes.
So I would say, man, first and foremost, and I think coming from me at my age, it definitely makes sense. Like, be a student of your craft and show up every day, like willing to learn, and don't let your ego or your personal desires get in the way of making something great. Always be willing to learn. And I would say, be grateful for where you're at. Like, wake up every day and just try to express some gratitude, and that, honestly, when I'm feeling low, I just try to think of the good things that I do have and express some gratitude. It always, like, it kind of winds up coming back to you, and you just, pay that sort of attitude forward. And so be a student of your craft, have gratitude. And most importantly, like, serve the song.
Oh,
Just we are servants to the song. And if, no matter what it is, just become a part of that, become a part of something greater than yourself by serving what you're doing, and that means just being prepared,
Yeah, for sure.
Be a student, be grateful, serve the song, and show up on time.
Yeah, that's great advice. And, Logan probably wouldn't do this otherwise. So I'm actually going to tell the story, but I think probably the third or fourth sentence out of your mouth to me when we met last summer was, what have you been working on as a drummer? That's really, you ask me, what licks, what grooves, what have you been focusing on in your playing? That was almost instantly what we started talking about. And that is you being a student of your game. You were like, oh, here's a guy with gray hair standing in a booth, trying to help, move some product. He might know something, and you didn't know me from anybody, which I think says a lot. And, me doing this show, it's so therapeutic for me because I get to ask guys like Matt Chamberlain or Chris McHugh, like, what were you thinking when I want to know what makes these guys tick. And it's almost like learning by osmosis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you hear somebody talk about going into the studio to do this, or that, whatever the case may be, if you understand what they were thinking about going into that situation, you pick up that experience a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though you're not the guy physically playing the notes. I think this has just been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah,
I appreciate
really
you making the drive up.
Yeah, better than a phone call on my Boost mobile phone. So.
Yeah. That's so
don't
funny.
Tell anyone you should.
Yeah.
I've still got Boost Mobile, not for long. Don't worry.
Yeah,
My wife will laugh at that.
When those royalty checks start rolling in, as I'm sure they will. we got to do this again.
Absolutely.
I've been threatening to start doing a co-host on every episode.
Oh man,
that's been kind of a thought process. So we may have to, go into get your people to call my people, and we'll do the contract negotiations.
We got our producers and managers on hold right now.
That's exactly right. This is such a well-oiled machine that you're a part of today.
Yeah, we're in a 7,000 square foot studio right now.
That's exactly right. So we're actually in my daughter's old bedroom. So this was the nursery when my daughter was young. So, but no, I appreciate you coming up and doing this, and we got to have you back again. Do you have web address or anything that you want to share out there so people can look you up and send you some emails?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm a kid from Memphis, aptly. And then on YouTube, you can find me under the same thing, a kid from Memphis, or Logan Todd on drums. I'm still working on my website right now, but I've got a SoundCloud under a kid from Memphis.
Okay.
Pretty much across all platforms. That's where you can find me. And yeah, email james.todd.lt@gmail.com. I don't know why that's relevant, but if I get an email, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. So you heard that. The challenge has been laid down. The gauntlet is laid down for all you Drum Shuffle listeners. Email Logan. Please blow him up. Now, hopefully you won't get signed up for all the Russian mail order bride stuff. I hope nobody does that to you.
We'll see.
Hope your spam filter is strong. Trust me when I say that, you would be surprised.
I just opened up a whole can of worms.
You did, but I'll show you how to get past that. But anyway, Logan, thanks so much, man.
This
has been great, brother. It's we'll do it again sometime soon. So everybody look Logan up. This is a kid from Memphis that you should be watching. You're going to hear from him for many years to come. So thanks, brother.
All right. Thanks, man.
See ya. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap up episode 67 of the Drum Shuffle. Many, many thanks to Logan Todd for making the drive up from Nashville to do that. We really do appreciate his time. And again, you guys look up Logan on all your different social media platforms. Follow him, give him some love. Because again, this is the next generation of great drummers. I promise you that. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate each and every one of you doing that week after week. We just simply can't do this show without all of you guys tuning in. We are growing like wild here at the Drum Shuffle, and we want to thank you for helping us to continue that growth process. To that end, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're using to listen in to the Drum Shuffle. It really does help us a lot. We're getting very, very close to 10,000 subscribers, which is just absolutely amazing, and we owe all of that to all of you guys. We have interviews coming up over the next couple of weeks that you're certainly not going to want to miss. Next week, I'm going to be joined by jazz great Mark Walker. The week after that, I am going to be joined by Americana everyman Jerry Pentecost. Jerry's just doing a ton of great work out there. So that's 2 weeks from now. Next week, jazz great Mark Walker talking about his new release, another just fantastic drummer. We really do appreciate you guys sending us your emails throughout the week. The Drum Shuffle Podcast at gmail.com is our email address. We do respond to every single one of those. Of course, our web address is thedrumshuffle.com, and my web address is jamieeads.com. While you're there, go ahead and look at those social media links. Follow us, give us the blue thumb on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all those different things. We do try to have social media output throughout the week, and you can follow us there as well. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Tell a friend about the Drum Shuffle, share a link with somebody. That helps us more than anything. So until next time, may your head stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers, everybody.